press conference on this issue. And, you know, while we recognize the report's importance to New Yorkers, we're wondering if this press conference and if this is at all an attempt to distract from all the scandals and resignations that have involved your administration.
Well, first of all, you can't distract, because remember the motto: stay focused, no distractions, and grind. No, we are proud of what we have done. You guys write about the MMR often. You look through the over 2,000 pieces, and sometimes people would take one or two. And I think we have to write our own narrative, because if we don't show this success and we don't have a person who has benefited from what we're doing, it just doesn't seem to get covered. And so we don't want to distract. We want to have folks pay attention of how successful this administration has been.
So is it intentional to focus on this narrative amid everything that's going on?
No, it's intention to focus on this narrative so I can write my story. Oftentimes, history is someone else writing your story. I want to write my own story. And this story is how great we have done this administration around housing, around public safety, around employment, around some of the other key indicators that are in the report.
I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to The Sal Greco Show. This has been one jam-packed weekend, followed by an interesting Monday. And, you know, I'd like to sit here and talk to you about how great Friday Night Highlight was at Highlight League. I'd like to tell you how great it was to see a festive mood there. But we're going to go back to what? We have two things that really occurred in the last couple of days. We had another attempt on the life of President Trump. And then we have this corruption scandal in New York City that is never ending. It's just the details that are trickling out. You have two FDNY Chiefs that were indicted just on Monday alone. So let's get right into it. So over the weekend, there was another attempted assassination of President Donald Trump's life. The former president was golfing at his club out in West Palm Beach, Florida, and this maniac came out of nowhere. It was apparently was sitting there for a while, but here's the body cam video of his arrest. I'll play this, and then we'll get into the article.
Driver, take 2 steps to your right. Take 2 steps to your right. Driver, walk straight back. Keep walking.
Accused Trump gunman Ryan Wesley Ralph hid in sniper's nest for nearly 12 hours before he was spotted by Secret Service. This is by Isabel Keene. Ryan Wesley Ralph, the alleged would-be Trump assassin, set up a sniper's nest near the former president's golf course and hid there for nearly 12 hours before the apparent ambush attempt, federal prosecutors said Monday. Ralph's cell phone pinged to the spot on the edge of Trump International West Palm Beach starting from 1:59 a.m. Sunday, the federal criminal complaint said. His gun barrel was spotted by a Secret Service agent around 1:30 p.m. while Trump was on the links 300 to 500 yards away. In the sniper's nest, agents found a digital camera, 2 bags, and a loaded SKS-style rifle with its serial number scratched off and unreadable, according to a complaint. You're seeing some of the pictures here of that. SKS-style rifles are not manufactured in Florida, and the weapon was either brought in from another state or country, the complaint reads. Moments after the Secret Service agent fired at Ralph, a witness saw the suspect speeding away from the golf course in a Nissan sport utility vehicle with stolen plates. Is this jerk's mugshot? He looks like a wicked human being, by the way. Routh was later caught by authorities on I-95. Now, here it is also said, here's what we know about the assassination attempt on Trump in Florida. Former President Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach on September 15, 2024. Trump sent out a statement to supporters soon after to report that he was safe and well. The suspect, identified as Ryan Routh, 58, of Hawaii, was able to get within 300 to 500 yards of Trump at a chain-link fence on the edge of the course, where he had an AK-47 and a GoPro camera set up, apparently to record the planned shooting. Routh has a history of supporting progressive caucuses online and has made 19 donations to Democratic candidates since 2019. A Secret Service agent spotted and opened fire on Routh as he put his gun through the fence. The suspect fled and was arrested on I-95 a short time later. According to Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, Trump's security detail was lighter because he isn't a sitting president, despite the previous attempt on his life in July. This is the final part of this article. According to the complaint, Routh was convicted in 2002 in Greensboro, North Carolina, after he was found with a weapon of mass death and destruction. He was later convicted in 2010 of multiple counts of possession of stolen goods, per the complaint. Let's make this clear. Here on the Sal Greco Show, we condemn any political violence. There is no room for it or violence in general, just as much as there is no room for corruption. So this incident that occurred seems to be another lapse in the Secret Service security and their little detail. I don't understand how, there's not extra guy, maybe one or two guys on the perimeter near the fencing. This seems to be a breakdown once again in the Secret Service detail. This time there was a brave Secret Service agent that decided to fire at this individual the minute he saw this gun. So, with all this being said, let's garner all the facts first before we start rushing to judgment and starting the conspiracy theories. Obviously, the last incident was already one incident too much, but we had complete failures all the way around. And in that incident, much like this incident, it was the cops that saved the day. And in this incident, it was the cops, the sheriff, that made the arrest. Just so we're clear, it's usually the cops that make the save the day and make the big arrests. So before we rush to judgment, we already have this gentleman being prosecuted out in Palm Beach County. Let the process play out. We'll hear about all the facts as they roll in. Great job by the Secret Service agent. I personally believe that the security detail should be a little bit larger. Obviously, there's a lot of tension in the air. You have a lot of crazies running around. So, yes, I think the detail should be larger. I don't know who approves that. I believe it's President Biden. Let's get this right, okay? And please, no more political violence. Enough is enough. This is getting ridiculous. So, what's up next? Well, let's see. What's going on in New York City? Mayor Adams' chief counsel, Lisa Zornberg, resigned over rebuffed advice to fire officials amid probe. This is from the Daily News, from the Batman and Robin of the Beat, Chris Sommerfeld and Graham Raymond. Lisa Zornberg, Mayor Adams' former chief counsel, resigned over the weekend after the mayor rejected her advice to fire several top administration officials ensnared in federal corruption investigations rocking City Hall, according to two sources familiar with the matter. The sources, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations, told the Daily News that among the administration officials Zornberg urged the mayor to terminate was Tim Pearson, his senior public safety advisor, whose home was raided and electronics seized by federal authorities early this month. The identities of the other top officials Zornberg wanted to see axed weren't immediately clear. Pearson is among 5 senior Adams aides who had their homes raided and devices confiscated this month as part of 2 separate corruption investigations led by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office. Zornberg presented Adams with the recommendation for firings after concluding an internal review of Ray Martin, a lower-level aide in the mayor's community affairs unit, the sources said. Martin was identified this past Thursday in a report by WMEC as having used his city position to help drum up security business for James Caban, the twin brother of recently resigned NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban, who has emerged as a key figure in one of the ongoing federal probes. James Caban, a former cop, is being investigated over whether he used his connections in the NYPD to squeeze nightlife venues in the city for cash in exchange for police favors. WNBC reported Martin directed one Brooklyn bar owner to speak to James Caban after he complained about too much police enforcement at his establishment, and the commissioner's brother in turn asked the owner to pay him $2,500 to make the problem go away. After the report, the mayor's office did terminate Martin at Zornberg's recommendation, the sources told the news, but the mayor ultimately did not follow her advice to boot other senior officials in the administration, sources said. One of the sources familiar with the matter described Zornberg's weekend request for the mayor to fire multiple advisors as an ultimatum. When Adams didn't follow her advice, she resigned, the two sources said. I am tendering my resignation effective today as I have concluded that I can no longer effectively serve in my position, Zornberg wrote in a resignation letter late Saturday night to the mayor. Adams' office has declined to identify a reason for Zornberg's departure, but the New York Times first reported over the weekend that it came after the mayor had declined her advice on certain personnel matters. In an unrelated press conference at City Hall on Monday morning, the mayor declined to discuss the events leading up to Zornberg's resignation, telling reporters he doesn't go into private conversations. The mayor, who appointed Zornberg last July, said he has developed such a friendship with her during her time at City Hall. She was funny. She was energetic. We enjoyed each other's company and talked about a slew of different topics. But, you know, people make decisions, and I respect the decisions that people make, he told reporters. It's unclear who will replace Zornberg as chief counsel, a post that comes with the responsibility of serving as the top lawyer for the mayor in his government office. Adams said there's a deep bench of lawyers in the chief counsel's office he will rely on for legal advice until he solidifies a pick for a permanent successor. Zornberg could not be reached for comment Monday, and Pearson did not respond to messages. Zornberg's departure adds another layer of turmoil at City Hall, which was besieged earlier this month by the latest federal investigations coming to light, in response to which Police Commissioner Caban resigned Thursday. The second probe, spearheaded by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office that came into view this month, is looking at whether Terrence Banks, the younger brother of Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Phil Banks, and school chancellors David Banks, played part in a scheme involving unregistered lobbying and kickbacks on city contracts. As part of the probe, all three Banks brothers had their homes searched and electronics confiscated early this month. First, Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, Chancellor Banks' longtime partner who shares a home with him, also had her electronics taken. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office is also investigating allegations the mayor's 2021 campaign received illegal donations from Turkey's government. And yet another separate probe, FBI agents in February raided two Bronx homes owned by Winnie Greco, a top aide to Adams. No one has been charged with wrongdoing in connections with the federal investigations. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office last year indicted Adams' ex-Buildings Department Commissioner Eric Ulrich on bribery counts. In a separate matter also prosecuted by Manhattan DA Evan Bragg, several Adams supporters have pled guilty to campaign finance violations. Ulrich maintains his innocence and is fighting his case in court. Left-leaning Queens Councilwoman Tiffany Caban, a frequent Adams critic, pointed to the array of investigations in calling on Adams to step down Monday. Eric Adams leads with corruption and mismanagement. If his track record of cutting critical services and empowering NYPD abuses wasn't enough, it is more clear than ever that Eric Adams is unfit to govern. Caban, a Democratic socialist, said in a statement, New Yorkers deserve better. It is time for him to resign. So this happened Saturday night around 10:30 p.m. So I did catch wind of this, and it seems that Laura Zornberg, who's the chief counsel to the mayor and to City Hall, actually, she was trying to persuade her client that her client should terminate some individuals that are in this administration. I could tell you offhand two people that stick out like a sore thumb are Timothy Pearson and Philip Banks. But, of course, Eric doesn't listen to counsel. In fact, he usually tells the counsel how it really is because He's the reason that Sylvia Hinz Radix, who was the chief of Corporation Counsel, she was the head of it. She told him that Corporation Counsel cannot represent him or anyone in his administration or the NYPD in sexual misconduct cases because it doesn't fall under the scope of their duties. Eric knows best and decided to have Ingrid Lewis Martin inform her no longer needed her services. So that's why she left, and now Lisa Zornberg's leaving. But there's more to this. The chief counsel to the mayor doesn't just walk out because you don't listen to her, which is one of the things, but there's something here that's brewing. And I believe we're going to get to that in a little bit. But first, we have 2 retired FDNY chiefs that were picked up and indicted for corruption. So let's go over these indictments. 2 now retired FDNY chiefs busted for taking $190,000 in bribes to speed up inspections. It's from the Daily News. It's from Sheetal Bancaria. I hope I didn't mess that name up. And Josephine Stratman. And John Anise, all from the Daily News. By the way, they're all doing excellent work. I applaud you all. Everyone should be reading the Daily News. 2 now retired FDNY chiefs were arrested Monday on federal charges. They accepted $190,000 in bribes to speed up fire safety inspections before leaving the department. Former FDNY Assistant Chief Anthony Saccavino and former Deputy Assistant Chief Brian Cordasco were busted on a 43-page indictment that includes counts of bribery, conspiracy, wire fraud, and lying to the FBI. Saccavino was head of the FDNY's Fire Prevention Bureau, or the BFP, and Cordasco worked under Saccavino. These defendants used their powers as senior members of the FDNY to let some people cut to the front of the line. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Damian Williams told reporters Monday they allegedly created a VIP lane for faster service that could only be accessed with bribes. There's Damian Williams with the chart. They allegedly conspired with a retired firefighter, Henry Santiago, who owned an expediting business, then directed the members of their bureau to speed up the inspection process for that conspirator's business in exchange for bribes, the feds allege. The duo repeatedly abused their positions of trust as high-ranking officials in the New York City Fire Department from at least in or about 2021 through in or about 2023 by soliciting and accepting tens of thousands of dollars in bribe payments in exchange for providing preferential treatment, reads the indictment, which was unsealed in Manhattan federal court. Saccavino and Cordasco took advantage of a backlog on fire alarm and fire suppression systems inspections during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the feds say. That's when Santiago and Saccavino, who were longtime pals, became secret business partners, the indictment alleges. Cordasco, who went to the FDNY Academy with Santiago, soon joined the business, the feds allege. Santiago told his customers he could get faster inspections because of his FDNY connections and was often paid thousands of dollars to speed things up, the feds say. The chiefs each got a 30% cut of the action, according to the indictment. One filing representative paid Santiago $50,000 to expedite 8 separate projects. There's the picture of Brian Cordasco. In one instance, Cordasco wrote in a group text, "Are we getting wowed with the price? How much?" about a request to expedite a fire alarm inspection in fall 2022. Saccavino earned a FDNY salary of $263,478, while Cordasco earned $257,296 annually, the feds say. Santiago, who according to the indictment had a falling out with the Chiefs last year, has since pled guilty and is cooperating with prosecutors, authorities said. In all, the duo took bribes to fast-track about 30 properties, the feds charged. Department of Investigation Commissioner Jocelyn Struber said her department started looking into the Chiefs after getting a tip in 2023. She said they didn't find evidence that the scheme compromised fire safety, but the FDNY still had to reinspect all of the properties involved. The duo would repeatedly lie to justify speeding up the process or use the influence of their positions, at times falsely claiming that the properties were on a so-called City Hall list of preferred buildings and projects that should get faster inspections, the feds allege. Here's another picture of the bribery scheme, the chart. Cordasco claimed he opposed the idea of a city hall list in an April 2022 email, writing it was extremely unfair to the applicants who have been waiting at least 8 weeks for their inspection, according to the feds. He was part of a high-level email discussion about the use of the list and fast-tracked inspections for 50 Hudson Yards and other projects. But in June 2022, he lied to a subordinate that a Manhattan restaurant needed a fast inspection because it was flagged by the FDNY's Office of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs, which maintained the list, according to the indictment. This project did not appear on the City Hall list, the feds say. The list, also called the DMO list, because it fell under the purview of the Deputy Mayor of Operations, started under the de Blasio administration. The list drew scrutiny in November as part of the FBI investigation to donations to Mayor Adams' 2021 campaign in the wake of disclosures about delays to the opening of the Turkish consulate in Manhattan 2021. Adams took office as mayor in January 2022. Adams has confirmed that he asked former Fire Commissioner Daniel Negro to look into the status of building safety violations that were preventing opening and said the outreach was part of his normal duties as an elected official. Adams has repeatedly said City Hall has not maintained a DMO list on his watch, though emails obtained by the news suggest that such a list was used at least in the early days of his administration, largely overseen by the FDNY. We stated then, and we gonna state it again, that this administration did not have a list named like that, and we made that clear, and we stand by that, Adams told reporters Monday. This action initiated under a previous administration, he added, when then Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh became aware of it. She self-reported it. Our administration became aware of it. It took the proper steps and reported the action. Williams, the Manhattan U.S. attorney, said Monday he was sticking to the four walls of the indictment in his public statements. On the City Hall list, I'm going to limit what I say to what's already in the indictment. So I'm not going to provide my personal view, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing as a matter of policy, he told reporters. These defendants, as we allege in the indictment, used the City Hall list or the DMO list, as it's also called, to effectively excuse or cover up the way they were pressuring other folks to expedite matters they were being bribed to expedite. FDNY Commissioner Robert Tucker said Monday the department will fully cooperate with any ongoing investigations. Every member of the FDNY takes a sworn oath to conduct themselves honestly and ethically. Anything else will not be tolerated, he added. Keeping New Yorkers safe remains our top priority. Saccavino's lawyer, Joseph Calderera, called the allegations against them both surprising and distressing. It is essential to remember that Chief Saccavino has dedicated his life to the FDNY, earning the respect of his colleagues and the community alike. His actions have consistently reflected the values of integrity, bravery, and commitment, Calderera said. We will vigorously contest these allegations. My client strongly denies ever taking any bribes. Boy, oh boy. This corruption probe is ever expanding. Just when everybody thought it's just the NYPD or it's just the mayor's office, this reaches far, far and wide. And this little investigation and this little incident, we'll say, actually was due to a lawsuit. See, there was a complaint filed by a former FDNY employee, I believe he was a chief, and he made these allegations in a lawsuit. Then the feds interviewed him. They went to go interview, I believe, a few more people. And then the next thing you know, voila, they get this. And that's how the Eric Adams Turkish Embassy 2021 mayoral campaign investigation even came about. It was off a civil lawsuit. Much of the feds' investigations actually come from civil lawsuits. A lot of civil attorneys end up having to hand things over, or their case is what's used for the basis of a start of an investigation from the federal government. I don't know if people know that, but it's the truth. And it clearly happened in this instance, along with the lawsuit featuring Timothy Pearson, where we found out that when they alleged that Timothy Pearson was talking to Internal Affairs, even though he's not part of the NYPD, and that he was also in charge of promotions, he's not part of the NYPD. Once again, I keep reminding everyone that the lawsuit alleged that, and now They have evidence of it. And you hear about it in these federal probes where they took his phones and raided his house. And through the Freedom of Information Act, the Daily News found out that on Timothy Pearson's schedule was he sat down with Internal Affairs and the NYPD numerous times a month, even though he is not a member of the New York City Police Department, actually should go to the police commissioner. So these civil lawsuits actually matter. They do pay attention to it, especially U.S. attorneys, just so you understand. This is a disgrace. I expect even more. It doesn't stop with just this and the FDNY. And that just shows what kind of an upheaval you have underneath Eric Adams. And Eric Adams was trying to push the blame on the previous administration. Actually, Eric, this went on during your administration. It's not like you put your foot down on anything. So, this guy just talks out of both sides of his mouth. The most, how can I say this? The most conflicted man in politics today. And now we have another story involving even more corruption in the New York City Police Department and the Eric Adams administration in this corruption probe going on right now in New York City. All right, this is from Tina Moore from the New York Post. Bar owner says ex-police commissioner Edward Caban's brother James tried to extort him. Nightlife cops subpoenaed. Federal investigators subpoenaed phones from a group of NYPD lieutenants responsible for fielding complaints about bars in an ever-widening probe into a scheme that allegedly involved the brother of ex-police commissioner Edward Caban, who resigned Friday, the Post has learned. The special operation lieutenants are responsible for identifying and addressing quality of life problems in precincts through 311 hotline calls, police sources said. The lieutenants were allegedly told to take it easy on bars that were clients of James Caban, the former commissioner's twin and himself a former NYPD officer. Do not do enforcement, just mediate, the cops were told, according to a source. Noise complaints, crowd complaints, drinking on the sidewalks, people having sex in their vehicles. It's all behavior that affects the neighborhood, the source said. A Brooklyn bar owner told NBC New York Thursday that James Caban tried to extort him last summer. Shamel Kelly, who owns Juice and More on Mermaid Avenue in Coney Island, told NBC New York he went to City Hall seeking a break from a heavy police presence at his establishment and that a mayoral staffer introduced him to James Caban. His bar, which served juice during the day and alcohol on weekend nights, had been the subject of dozens of noise complaints, records show. James Caban told him that he'd take care of his problems with the police if he had paid $2,500, Kelly alleged. He said that he would mediate my issues with the NYPD, Kelly told the station. He could bring them to me, have a meeting, resolve our issues, is what he specifically said he could do, Kelly said. After he said I had to pay him for it, I felt like it was him trying to extort me. Kelly said he ultimately refused to move forward with the plan and his bar eventually closed. The mayoral staffer, Ray Martin, was fired Wednesday over his alleged involvement in the scheme. Both Cabans had their phones taken by the feds, along with several members of NYPD brass and the mayor. None of them have been charged with a crime. Thomas Donlan, a retired FBI official, was sworn in as an interim police commissioner Friday. Edward Caban made history as the first Hispanic to be appointed to the post in 2023 and had vowed to crack down on crime. Major crime, including homicides, declined during his tenure. So there it is. This nightclub extortion racket, that all of this has just like ballooned into like the epicenter of it. It starts at Cono Sofrito and then it just the epicenter, and then boom, it just grows. Now you're hearing about this 311 system, and I'll tell you what this is for people that don't know. When you want to call in for a noise complaint, or you have like a garbage bag on a sidewalk, or anything that's not an emergency, you call the 311 system, which is something that was created under Mayor Bloomberg. This will be rerouted into the 311 system. There's usually an officer that was at the telephone switchboard operator, we call him. He was at the helm there at the computer, and he would give the 311, we call them jobs or whatever, would pop up on the screen. He would call the officers in the field and say, we have a 311 regarding, a cat in a tree, something like that. Now officers have a cell phone, and that's how they would get it. It would go straight to their phone, depending on who's in what section of the precinct. So that's how 311s operate. But here, this was also something that actually Eric Dim and John McCarry of the Retired Unfiltered podcast brought up, and that NYPD has what's called a CompStat meeting. This is where they have all these big chiefs. They all sit down and they pout about crime numbers and what they're going to do and how they're going to lower numbers and how great this precinct is and how not great this precinct is. But the one thing they always spoke about was 311 jobs, the number of 311 calls that came in, and what would happen, what was the end result of them. They want to know what happened to the 311 calls. So what's going on here? Because the person that's in charge of this is the special operations lieutenant. He's basically, he or she is in charge of all the, let's say the crime unit, or we'll say the people that wear, we call them the khaki pants now. Those guys that run around and do all the, what used to be called anti-crime stuff. So what is going on with the 311 calls that come in regards to all these nightclubs? So we're seeing that there's a lot of them in a short amount of time for, let's say, one nightclub in particular. But then I'm going to think outside the box and say, there's either somebody on the inside with these people that are making all these complaints so that you get all these complaints in one place, and then the precinct has to go there, and then the scam goes on and on and on. So I'm starting to think that maybe there was someone on the inside, and I'm just speculating here, but it's odd that just one place will have 10 calls or 15 311 calls, yet, what happened to the rest of the neighborhood? There's other nightclubs, there's other things that are going on, but it seems to be focused on one place all the time. And that would be a red flag to me. And also how the lieutenants manage this stuff. And the lieutenant on the, let's say, midnight platoon, which is when the officers work after midnight, which is when they would probably go to a nightclub. So what was the end result of these 311 calls, and then how were they handled? Because then you have this guy coming around saying, give me $2,500, who's not a police officer, most definitely had a security detail apparently, and is the brother of the police commissioner, and he's running around saying he's either his brother or he's there on his brother's behalf. These are the allegations we're hearing, and you actually have evidence of it. So this one seems to be something that I think people should home in on, because what Eric Dim and John McCarry actually unveiled probably happened in other precincts, because it seems to be the same pattern that we're hearing with other allegations involving other restaurants or nightclubs, we'll say. So this is to be continued, but it is very troubling to hear this. And I expect more supervisors and executives to fall on the sword here. You're going to be hearing about more subpoenas. There's subpoenas flying all over the place in different commands. We also have the police commissioner, a new one that got sworn in. He put his foot down in his new rules, and hopefully won't see these barrage of comments from the chief of patrol late at night, and also the deputy commissioner of operations. So we'll see how this goes. It's a new regime. It's a new era. At least this should be the cleanup phase, we'll say. But there's more. City Hall aide fired amid federal probe, worked for years with Mayor Adams on nightlife issues. This is from the Daily News, and it's from the Batman and Robin of the New York City beat, Chris Sommerfeld and Graham Raymond. Here's the article. A City Hall official fired last week amid a federal corruption investigation involving NYPD nightlife enforcement worked for years with Mayor Adams and took part in conversations about his decision to disband a Giuliani-era city task force that cracked down on misbehaving nightlife spots, the Daily News has learned. Raymond Martin, a staffer in the mayor's community affairs unit focused on nightlife issues, was terminated Thursday for an unspecified violation of City Hall rules. The firing came after WNBC reported Martin referred a Coney Island bar owner, Shamel Kelly, to ex-NYPD Edward Caban's twin brother, James Caban, after Kelly had asked for help from City Hall resolving police enforcement of noise complaints tied to his business. When Kelly reached out, James Caban reportedly asked to get paid $2,500 to fix the problem and get cops to back off his bar, an offer Kelly says he refused. Sources have confirmed James Caban's alleged efforts to sell police favors to nightlife establishment owners is a key focus of one of two federal investigations engulfing the upper echelons of Adams' administration. On September 4th and 5th, federal authorities leading the NYPD-focused probe seized electronics from James Caban and several top administration officials, including Commissioner Caban, who resigned days later. Martin's role in a sequence involving Kelly's bar was referred to the city department investigation last Wednesday, mayoral spokesman Fabian Levy confirmed. There is no indication he's directly involved in the federal probe. Adams, asked about the issue, declined to comment. DOI handles that, he said Monday. A Department of Investigation spokeswoman declined to comment. Through his lawyers, James Caban has denied wrongdoing. Our client has fully cooperated with law enforcement, and once their investigation is complete, it will be clear that these claims are unfounded and lack merit. His lawyer, Sean Hacker, told the News. No one has been charged in any of the investigations. Martin hasn't responded to inquiries from the News since last week. For several years, Martin has played a role in working with Adams on nightlife issues, going back to the mayor's days as borough president and state senator. In a 2019 interview with Brooklyn podcaster Jay Blessed, Raymond Martin discussed his long-standing ties to Adams. I was always working very closely with the borough president, Eric Adams, and I was his liaison to the community in terms of hospitality and nightlife, Martin said in the interview. I should say Eric has been really a true ambassador. One of the things that people don't realize is where I am now in the mayor's office. This was triggered by him. Sources said Martin took place in talks leading to Adams' decision to change the city's approach to enforcing nightlife rules. March, or Multi-Agency Response to Community Hotspots, was launched by ex-mayor Rudy Giuliani and involved the NYPD and the State Liquor Authority conducting raids on nightclubs marred by noise complaints and other quality of life issues. In December 2023, Adams dismantled the oft-criticized March and created a new program called CURE, placing former NYPD Lieutenant Jeff Garcia in charge. CURE was portrayed as a more collaborative program that would give club owners a chance to work towards resolving community complaints. A source directly familiar with the matter said this week that Martin, prior to the 2023 announcement, had privately recommended the mayor sunset March. Adams spokeswoman Armaris Cockfield said the creation of CURE was led by Ingrid Lewis Martin, the mayor's chief advisor, and deputy mayor for economic development Maria Torres Springer. Ray Martin had no involvement in this process, Cockfield added. Adams has long been vocal about what he believed was an overly aggressive approach to enforcing nightlife issues. Martin, in fact, helped then Brooklyn Borough President Adams organize an anti-March rally in front of the NYPD's Manhattan headquarters on July 3rd, 2020. During the event, Adams railed against the targeting of minority nightlife venues during March raids. I believe there's a well-organized plan of closing down black and brown businesses because of gentrification. We have weaponized these agencies to, I believe, expedite gentrification, Adams said at the 2020 presser. The source familiar with the 2020 event told the News that Martin who was president, helped organize it in part by inviting restaurant owners to attend. The source said Martin had been a regular presence around Adams when it came to nightlife matters before then. Kelly, the Coney Island bar owner, told the News in an interview Monday that Martin introduced himself as an assistant to the mayor on nightlife issues when he came to his business last year and urged him to contact James Caban about his troubles with the police. Martin got his start in municipal government in August 2018 as an associate director under then Mayor de Blasio with the mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, which used to house a nightlife-focused unit, according to records and mayoral spokesman Levy. He remained in the unit after de Blasio departed and Adams took over. In August 2023, he moved to the community affairs unit as an operations coordinator focusing on nightlife. One of his roles was planning for a safer Juve, the all-night event that takes place before Brooklyn's annual West Indian Day Parade. I am the person that's leading the effort. We have the borough president's office. We have a Caribbean police liaison in the police commissioner's office, he said in the 2019 podcast appearance. I work directly with the police commissioner's office with the boroughs, the NYPD borough officers. He said he also dealt with club owners across the city. Even in this current position, I have to deal with some of the biggest names in entertainment and hospitality in New York City, he said. Martin said he got into politics through now Attorney General Letitia James in her campaign for city council after the 2003 murder of then Councilman James Davis. So this Raymond Martin character, he's been around, Eric, for a long time. If you didn't catch that last part, which is important, is he's linked to Letitia James. And it's funny because we all know what? Letitia James is linked to where? Cono Sofrito in the Bronx, where she's been spotted numerous times hanging out with everybody, from Richard Caban to Eric Adams, and of course, who else? The self-admitted criminal and mob associate Jimmy Rodriguez, who also was spotted with this nightlife mayor, the former Lieutenant Jeff Garcia, another Cono Sofrito guy, apparently. So, man, it's like this is like a whole web that always goes back to the same thing. It always goes back to Cono Sofrito somehow. But it's no surprise we're hearing this because this guy has been a lackey for Eric Adams. He's always involved in nightlife. And here he is in the center of this whole extortion ring where apparently he's telling people, hey, you come to me. I know some people that could take care of things for you. I mean, maybe it sounds like it's out of the 70s and this would be like a mafia type. You know, actually now is the criminal syndicate is the guys with the badges who work for the mayor. It's very hard to fathom that, but that's exactly what this sounds like. But wait, there's more. So on episode 7 of the Sal Greco show, I had a feature on there where I went on the Stone Zone with Troy Smith, who was co-hosting that show, and we discussed Sean Puff Daddy Combs, a.k.a. P. Diddy, the rapper, who had gotten the key to the city from New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and then eventually had to give it back because so much backlash occurred from that. But at that time, I had predicted that Sean Puff Daddy Combs would be indicted. And it would probably happen before Election Day. It was probably going to be sometime between September and October. I also said, more than likely, that Eric Adams would come to follow that. Because just by seeing how diligently Damian Williams, United States Attorney, is working in the Southern District of New York, and going off of just the reports that you're reading about, which are very alarming when it comes to Puff Daddy, and also recently with Eric Adams, which was a drumbeat that just kept becoming a crescendo, I predicted he would be indicted. Well, guess what just occurred? Sean Diddy Combs arrested by feds in New York. It's in the Daily News, and it's by Andrew Julian, John Anise, and Roni Jacobson. Rapper Sean Diddy Combs, facing multiple accusations in civil lawsuits of sexual abuse and trafficking, was arrested by federal authorities late Monday, the news has learned. The indictment was sealed and no charges were immediately available. Earlier this evening, federal agents arrested Sean Combs based on a sealed indictment filed by the FDNY. A statement from Damian Williams, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said, "We expect to move to unseal the indictment in the morning, and we'll have more to say at that time." New York Times said Diddy was taken into custody after a grand jury indictment. TMZ reported Diddy was in a Midtown hotel when feds arrested him. Combs' lawyer, Mark Agnifilio, released a statement on X Monday night that read in part, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office." According to a July report, a federal grand jury in New York City had been hearing evidence in a criminal investigation involving Combs. Two sources familiar with the matter told NBC News the disgraced music mogul and his legal team had been notified by authorities in the South District of New York that he was the subject of an ongoing probe. A law enforcement official confirmed at the time of that report to Deadline that Diddy and his legal team were formally notified of those proceedings, but did not give details on what claims the investigation involves. In March, Combs' properties in Los Angeles and Miami were raided by federal agents. Afterwards, he called it an unprecedented ambush and decried the premature rush to judgment it would lead to. Homeland Security Investigations issued a statement at the time saying it had executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation and would provide further information as it becomes available. Diddy has been the subject of multiple lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault or trafficking. That included a blockbuster lawsuit by his ex-girlfriend Cassie, who accused him of physically abusing her for years and raping her when she tried to leave him. The suit was settled in late 2023. A recent lawsuit filed in New York accused the rap mogul of drugging and sexually assaulting a 22-year-old IMG model who says in a suit she kept the clothes she wore that night to prove it. Former model Crystal McKinney filed a Manhattan federal court lawsuit in May, alleging Combs attacked her in 2023 after a designer introduced them at Men's Fashion Week event at Cipriani downtown. At the dinner, Combs was overly suggestive, bordering on leering, as he plied McKinney with alcohol and promised to use his industry connection to advance the Georgia native's career, predicting she was going to make it big one day, the suit alleges. Hopeful that Combs would fulfill his promises to help her career, McKinney accepted an invitation back to Combs' West 44th Street Midtown studio, where she alleges the rapper and his associates offered her marijuana she later determined was laced with an intoxicant. In graphic detail, the suit alleges Combs then led a clearly intoxicated McKinney to the bathroom, forcibly kissing her and shoving her head down to perform oral sex against her will before leading her back into the studio where she lost consciousness. This article is also contributed by Teresa Brain and Molly Crane Newman. Well, that is quite the development. So you're going to hear in the morning or in the afternoon, you'll hear this press conference coming from Damian Williams. We'll also have a rival press conference going on, which should be Eric Adams' weekly press conference where who knows what kind of questions he's going to be fielding, because his days, I believe, are numbered. Because like I tweeted out or actually posted on X, TikTok, you're on deck, Eric. But we're going to actually touch up on one final subject here before we leave, and that's your favorite nightclub apparently out there. There's many people talking about it, which is no longer in existence, but it's infamous for probably all the wrong reasons. And that's Cono Sofrito, a place that was owned by the police commissioner's brother, Richard Caban. And the creator and manager of the place is a criminal mob associate, a self-admitted criminal, that is, Jimmy Rodriguez Jr., the original owner of Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. So we, on the Sal Greco show, got our hands on some documents legally obtained. And this is involving the State Liquor Authority and some kind of investigation that was going on at Cono Sofrito, but the investigation just stopped. It was just withdrawn. So let me show you exactly what we're talking about here. Okay, so here's the post I have on X. The New York State Liquor Authority had an open complaint against Cono Sofrito in the Bronx, former NYPD Police Commissioner Ed Caban's brother, Richard Caban's business, in late 2021 that inexplicably was withdrawn without an explanation. The SLA was attempting to revoke their liquor license. Let's just take a look at these documents. So here's the first document here. And this is notice of pleading. You could tell that here that they are charging Cono Sofrito that they did, I guess, dancing inside the premise. And they are also looking for a Rule 54.8, the rules of the State Liquor Authority. They're looking to revoke their license. They only put this charge. I don't know if this is the only charge, but this is the case numbers right there. Okay. And then right here, they received from the council, from Cono Sofrito's council, that they were representing Cono Sofrito in this matter with the state liquor authority. Here's that document. Okay. And then here's this document here where it says they're pleading not guilty. Okay. They're pleading not guilty. This is official. And this is in October 2021. The original complaint started in August of 2021 because remember, there was an NYPD criminal referral to the Vice Enforcement Division Human Trafficking Unit. And then this is the final one right here. On December 2nd, 2021, says, Dear licensee, please be advised that the charges contained in the notice of pleading dated 9/22/21 in connection with the above referenced case number have been withdrawn. There's no explanation why either. We don't know why that was withdrawn. We don't know what the hell's going on there with that, but so now you see that the State Liquor Authority had an open investigation and they just withdrew it without any explanation. And then there was another investigation that was opened by the State Liquor Authority after one of the articles from the city was released in January, and the State Liquor Authority said, oh, we're investigating them. So there's a few legally obtained documents that I have received in regards to Cono Sofrito, and it shows that the investigator did his research. He found the Department of Buildings violation. He found the fire department violations. And then he found the health code violations. And I just want you to hear about this because if you patronized Cono Sofrito, maybe you should know what was really going on this entire time there in regards to the food you were eating. So as you can see, the documents here, you're going to see that there's the the NYC Fire and Building Code violations. It mentions the Department of Buildings. It mentions the FDNY. And then we see when he gets the violations, the dates. But here is the catch. New York City Health Department issued 12 violations to Cono Sofrito on October 12, 2023 for evidence of mice or live mice in establishments' food or non-food area. Non-food contact surface or equipment made of unacceptable material, not kept clean or not properly sealed, raised, spaced, or movable to allow accessibility for cleaning on all sides above and underneath the unit. Establishment is not free of harborage or conditions conducive to rodents, insects, or pests. It's misspelled, actually. It's insects. New York City Health Department issued 21 violations to Cono Sofrito on August 17, 2022 for food contact surface not properly washed, rinsed, and sanitized after each use and following any activity when contamination may have occurred. Filth flies or food refuse sewage associated with FRSA flies or other nuisance pests in establishments' food or non-food areas. FRSA flies include house flies, blow flies, bottle flies, flesh flies, drain flies, forage flies, and fruit flies. After cooking or removal from hot holding, TCS food not cooled by an approval method whereby the internal temperatures is reduced from 140 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees for less within 2 hours and from 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 41 degrees for less within 4 additional hours. Establishment is not free of harborage or conditions conducive to rodents, insects, or other pests. You see a repeated pattern. New York City Health Department issued 11 violations to Cono Sofrito on July 26, 2021 for food not protected from potential source of a contamination during storage, preparation, transportation, display, or service. Food contact surface not properly washed, rinsed, and sanitized after each use and following any activity when contamination may have occurred. So you're hearing that this place, if you had food there, you gotten sick at some point. I don't know. Mind you, they maintained an A rating the entire time. And I don't know. I think any establishment with that kind of violations would probably lose their A rating. On top of it, the people that patronized it may have gotten sick. Anybody that went there, I don't know how you feel about this, but yeah, this is a fact. It is a fact. What also is a fact, it appears that Jimmy Rodriguez himself in the last few days has been posting about Eddie Caban and very upset about him resigning as police commissioner. And then Eric Ulrich pops up. Yes, Eric Ulrich pops up and he's liking and commenting Jimmy Rodriguez's post. Now, I want to remind everybody, Eric Ulrich was the head of the Department of Buildings who gave Cono Sofrito, with Richard Caban as the owner. Eric Ulrich was the one that basically signed off on the fact that that shed was deemed illegal, yet was never torn down. Then, of course, Eric Ulrich ended up getting caught up in that mishigosh with Eric Adams, and he had to step down, and he was indicted. And then Mr. Otto, Jimmy Otto, took over, and still nothing happened to Cono Sofrito. But it's funny how Eric Ulrich is commenting on Jimmy's page. And now I wonder, did Eric Ulrich have anything to do with the fact that that shed was never torn down? And now we know for a fact that Cono Sofrito not only had been a fire trap due to the fact that the FDNY levied them with fines, and they, I don't know, I don't think some of them were paid, some of them weren't. Then you had the buildings department, which is where Eric Ulrich kicks in, told them to tear down the shed. It was deemed unsafe. And then we have the health department saying there's mice and insects and rodents and in the food, there's mice droppings. I want to vomit after this, but you be the judge of how this place remained open with all the characters that went there, that you know of, all the big names, and the people that unfortunately patronize this place and maybe need to go to a doctor. And with that being said, this will conclude this edition of the Sal Greco Show. There'll be more to come. I'm sure there'll be more to come today alone. And we will continue to cover this ongoing corruption scandal, along with many other current events. So if you liked what you just heard and what you saw, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the notification button. If you're on Rumble, hit the follow button, hit the Rumble button. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, give it a good rating if you can. And with that, I will see you on the next one.